Shalom, welcome to Out of Africa Torah Session. My name is Tatra Cohen, and this week we are on a very interesting Torah portion coming from the book of Deuteronomy from chapter 16 to 21. And this is Shoftim, Judges. You can tell by these chapters that this is quite a very lengthy Torah portion. I like the fact that it actually deals not only about justice and judges and the system, but it addresses a number of things. Well, we see in the beginning of it that Moses actually begins to review the laws of the justice system as it is being inaugurated. And this, by the way, was the model in which the people of Israel were going to live by and conduct themselves each and every day of their life. We also see Moshe begins to talk and limit the powers of the priesthood and also the powers of the kings, that perhaps they are tempted and peradventure, who knows, they might end up abusing their power on the people. And God was very wise to restrict their powers so that they stay confined only to do and deliver their job. And he mentioned there that they are supposed to receive donations instead of being paid. We're supposed to be receiving donations. Very interesting thing. And finally, Moses deals with something which is very important, especially in this generation: the rules of law, how you should conduct law in a manner which is worthy. And that's exactly like what we are witnessing today in this modern age, especially among those nations which fear Adonai. Well, you can tell a lot of things have been dealt with in this Torah portion. But today, I want to remind you of a certain scripture which says, and this comes from the book of Proverbs 21, which, and from verse 3, if I'm not mistaken, which tells us that, God would prefer, the words actually, if I paraphrase, are to say, to do what is right and just is more desired by the Lord than the sacrifice. In other words, God would prefer you that you have precedence on justice than sacrifice. Well, sacrificial system, according to the rabbis, was amazing and a great thing. But today we are not having sacrifices because they depended on the temple, and the temple is not standing today. So they are kind of like paused. But the rabbis goes on to tell us that, but for justice, it is more important because it is supposed to be done whether the temple stands or not. It affects your day-to-day life, as we see. Now, when you look at the words Moses used in bringing this issue of justice, it was more like, something that they have to understand and be willing to do. They had to not only understand, but they should perform it in its diligence way. And these are the words which are used in this Torah portion on the beginning of the reading of it. And it says, if I'm to paraphrase again, justice and only justice you shall pursue. Well, I remember when I was much younger, I used to play videos, lots of video games, and the computer and PlayStation, Sega, and so forth, all those things. And one of the games which I liked, myself and my friends, was mainly, and my brother as well, my older brother used to like, was mainly Need for Speed, Hot Pursuit. And the Hot Pursuit was very interesting because it was all about speed. You might be sometimes fleeing from the cops. You have to be like flying. And when the cops are following you, they are not following you to just catch up with you and maybe, just to arrive on the same destination with you. They are following you they are not just following you, they are actually pursuing you in order to seize you, to seize the moment, to stop you and to catch you. And that's exactly the word which is used here. That sometimes you see that justice has not been administered, especially to those who are weak, like what the Torah tells us. That the weak, the widow, the orphan, and those who are vulnerable, especially in the community, they are the ones who are usually deprived of justice. And therefore your job, before you do think of sacrifices, you should prioritize justice, as we are told in the scripture. God would make sure that justice is more important than the sacrifices. And when you see justice, it's usually in a pursuit. It's usually fleeing away from you. And your job is to seize it, is to run and catch it and make sure that justice has been performed. And when you do so, you are more likely going to please God. According to where I quoted from in Proverbs, you are going to please the Lord even more importantly than anyone else who is just probably focusing on sacrifices. So this is really a very interesting Torah portion. The rabbis also goes on to tell us that this issue of justice, which is expressed in this Torah portion, Shoftim, is one of the eternal religious obligations in the faith of the people of Israel, the people of the book. And why is it so? We see that today it is almost impossible to offer the sacrifice. It is impossible. Why? Because there is no temple standing. So the sacrificial system was somehow inferior compared to the system of justice. You don't need a temple to administer justice. Justice is everywhere. Your job is to make sure that it is implemented, especially to those who are poor, who are vulnerable, like the widow and the orphan and so forth. And that is exactly what we find from where I quoted earlier, Proverbs 21 from verse 3. So thank you. My prayer to you after hearing this is you would go and make it a habit that each and every time you at least try by all means possible to make sure that justice is administered, whether in your family, in your community, in the environment, wherever you find yourself. Make it a point, make it a habit that justice is always administered. And this is my word to you today.